Welcome back to another Genre Art with JB, broadcasting to you from the famous Green Mountains up here in Burlington, Vermont. It's a pleasure to be back with all of you. I know it's been some time, sort of reshuffling the way I do some of the things on the channel, trying to upgrade the production values a little bit. You may have noticed that there is a intro screen, and the thumbnails have a little bit more polish to them as well. I'm also going to be looking into upgrading my camera setup as well at some point. But for now, right, we'll just make the best of it. Got my handy dandy cell phone cam here. So let us begin. So what I wanted to touch on today was my oil painting process. Specifically, I wanted to take you guys through the process of how I do a oil painting from start to finish, from concept and ideation all the way through to execution. So I'm going to be doing some of the comps today. I'll be showing you how I would prepare the canvas, how I would gesso it, prime it, so to speak, and then we'll be going in and I'll show you how I would apply the underdrawing to the surface, and then after that the actual painting, and I'll break that down into basically the block in and then the final. But basically what I'm doing is coming up with sort of an Asian inspired character for a piece of draconic art that I'm going to be doing. And basically the idea is sort of a dragon rider facing down a band of orcs, and I want her to project heroism and strength, and also just sort of that epic fantasy feel, right? So independence, strength, goodness, virtue, all those things. The hero's journey, I want it to be evocative of the hero's journey. And so I'm trying to really come up with a custom character here that has some dynamic elements of all of those things. And also just like, if she's a dragon rider or if she's a dragon trainer, bring some more of those elements into the mix as well. Maybe some steampunk elements, some pirate elements. I've already got quite a bit of an Asian influence injected into the character here. That touches on something else that I've wanted to do for some time, which was sort of widen the gamut of the types of characters and people that I draw. I typically draw, people of my own ethnicity, being, white, right? I'm a white guy. I kind of have, that's what I know, and that's what I relate to the most, being Italian-American, right? So German, Italian-American, a mix of different European nationalities. That's sort of what I'm most familiar with and what I see when I look in the mirror, so it's easiest for me to kind of draw those types of people. But I wanted to push myself a little bit and step outside of my comfort zone and try to broaden the gamut of the types of characters that I'm representing in my art. And I always love the way that Asian cultures sort of portray dragons, right? And I wanted to do like my take on like an Asian dragon, like a sentient Asian dragon, like that is self-aware, but at the same time can still throw down, right? Like, you see Western dragons, they're depicted as very fearsome and sort of, whatchamacallit, intimidating. I wanted to inject a little bit of that into my take on an Asian dragon. I think just Asian dragons are so different looking from what you get a lot of the time when you look at draconic art. I mean, Western dragons are, let me just make sure that's adjusted there. Western dragons are definitely more animalistic and they're definitely more avian, whereas Asian dragons definitely more based on snakes and serpents, worms, but then cats as well. There's a lot of feline, there's a very distinct feline quality to Asian dragons. So basically, I have some reference punched up on my computer here, and I'm just going through and consulting my reference as I'm doing this, and just trying to, jump around the figure. You can see I've already sort of nailed in the likeness in the face, changed some things, I gave her a little bit of a utility belt down here and a strap that connects around to her pauldron there. And again, this is just a concept, so, you know, this is a one-to-one. A few things you want to consider when you're doing a painting, an illustration, when you're doing your comps or when you're doing your concepts, or when you're doing your underdrawing to your final, you want everything to be to scale. So you want everything to have, like, you know, your reference should be printed out to scale, and it should be next to your figure as you're drawing, so that you get a one-to-one translation of that reference, or as close and accurate translation of your reference as possible. And she's holding the sheath of her sword here. And I just want to make sure that I'm really getting that accurate. And that's looking kind of wonky, so I'm going to erase and just readjust. Hands are extremely difficult for beginner artists, but I found one way to get around that when I was starting out was that you block you basically block it in like you would block in a painting at large, right? But you're blocking in the hand to begin with. So you're just getting those planes down, really being conscientious of the reference if need be, just like what I did here, erase, kind of course correct, recalibrate as you will, if you will. Draw through the form, right, to kind of make sure that you're getting those forms as accurate as possible. And she's got those billowy long sleeves, so I'm trying to really indicate that in the drawing here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It doesn't even have to be that drilled down as a sketch, but what you want to do is get the important elements, the hands, the face, right? The gesture, the expression, the thrust of the action. You want to indicate that clearly in your comp. And then you're going to have your comp and your reference next to you when you paint. And this comprehensive is more or less just so I can get a sense of the character and how I'm designing the character, because you know, another way to do a comp, you can do digital comprehensives now with Photoshop. You can stitch your character together, which is something that I probably will end up doing anyway. And you can see how, again, really taking your time to get that hand correct is beneficial. And it looks like I could have cut it a little bit further down, but that's okay. I can always add a little bit later. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys get a better visual. And we're at 326. I will most likely cut this around 4. And I actually am doing this just referencing the shot, a photo off my computer, but typically I would have the photo printed out right next to me as I'm doing this so I can get a super accurate read on what's going on. I'm actually going to cut this up a little bit. Right there. And again, this is just the sword sheath. I typically use my kneaded eraser a lot. I like the control that the kneaded eraser gives you. And I've also, you also want to mirror test your figure to check for asymmetry, which I did the other day when I was drawing in the face. And this is, again, the start of what will become a new painting, right? There's other ways you could potentially make use of this comprehensive. You could, if you are one of those artists that uses projectors, you could, you know, utilize a projector to project this character onto your drawing and do a composite of different drawings into a cohesive whole. I'm not really, into using projectors, but never say never, In drawing years, I'm still relatively young, so I might get there. And I know that last week I did a I've done 2 parts of the Link versus Ganon demo, so at some point I will get those out, but I'm sort of, again, in the process of retooling my channel, just, in light of the fact that I've just moved and, your focus as an artist is continually shifting, so I'm getting more back in traditional art now that I'm up here. There's nothing that inspires you to paint more than being surrounded by these beautiful mountains up here in Burlington. And that's definitely had an impact and been an impetus for me to get back to traditional painting, along with being affiliated with the city's art studios here. They put a heavy emphasis on traditional, and it's just something that it's an itch that I have to scratch. I think whatchamacallit, let's just change it up, go to another reference image here. We're not going to see that. go. It's just some kind of piping and ornamentation on the belt clasps here. That there. Let's get rid of everything we're not seeing. Give it a little more shadow to this lower plane of the hilt to indicate that, you know, we're coming around the form here. And I've done a lot of sci-fi art, and I love fantasy art. I haven't done nearly as much straight fantasy art, though. Most of my work has been sci-fi fantasy. I got a couple of fantasy pieces, but it's something that I've been wanting to delve more into. I've always been fascinated by fantasy novels. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, a big Wheel of Time fan. I've read all the Dragonlance novels with the amazing Matt Stawicki covers. The editions that came out in the early 2000s had some beautiful art by Matt Stawicki, and I would urge you to Google Matt Stawicki. We're at 17 right now. I'll put Matt Stawicki's name in the cards, and definitely check him out. You know, so just want to indicate that there's some fabric here. Ropes and stuff. I don't know, maybe she's got like rope for when she's wrestling her dragon. Not that she would need to wrestle a sentient dragon, right? But why not add whatever makes it her look cooler? That's what we're going to add. I want to go with more of a plain. This will probably be a blue and red tunic here that she's wearing, and brown pants. And I'm going to Google some additional reference here. What I want to do is Google, let's see, maybe ninja pants. And I'm getting a bunch of modern shinobi. What's shinobi? Naruto, shinobi, tactical? I don't want tactical. I want feudal ninja pants. So this is another thing. I typically have tons of references in my Rolodex of reference files, and the Rolodex is digital now, right? Because we live in the digital age and we can keep records of everything on the computer. So that is what I'm doing. See, Ikebama, you know, real ninja, feudal ninja, real, and we have pictures of feudal samurai that are real. No ninjas. Let me see a shinobi, the ninja, the samurai, and the peasant. That's a pretty cool thumbnail. Historical. And it looks like they do historical reenactments of actual ninjas. You know, ninjas were always something that fascinated me. Just because they're so shrouded in mystery, right? Ninjas in Japan and their history. And I can't click into the image, but let's see, if we go Ninja Edo period. The character is heavily inspired by Japanese and Chinese, you know, aesthetics, and you know, basically basically designed along Eastern lines, right? So I want to try to indicate that here. Japan Edo period. How did? Let's see. I need That's a pretty good shot. I would like. There we go. That's better. Hopefully this. It's not really good resolution. So what I'm doing right now is trying to look at look for a high resolution photo. And I know that there's not a heck of a lot going on my screen right now, but I promise I'll be back to drawing in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. This is part of the process. Alright, so let's just go with this image right here. I can ad-lib it. Let's go here. Image rotation, flip canvas horizontal. There we go. Alright, so for those of you who are still with me, we're going to be massing in some details on the legs here. I'm actually going to come in and just... Actually, I don't like the pants that wide. So what we'll do is just maybe widen them a bit, but nothing crazy. We'll let gravity act on the front of the pants line here. And she's a very slightly built woman, so you want to sort of, you know, you don't want to make her have too much width, you know, in terms of, you know, the shapes of her legs and her arms. You want, you know, because a thin skeleton isn't, you know, unless she's working out a lot, she's not going to put on that much muscle. She has a thinner skeleton. The feet we can always think of as triangles. Get that, you know, hip in there, sort of find that perspective point, that vanishing point. And that as well. I want to convincingly indicate this leg here. And we're seeing quite a bit of this front plane of her foot. And we're at 25 right now. I'm just going to indicate a little bit of darker value here. And of course, her trousers are going to create a bit of a shadow down here. Zoom out a little bit so you can see the entire drawing process. And you always want to draw any sort of lines, fabric folds, even like marks to indicate value shift. You always want to be following the form. I don't mind that. Sometimes you can smudge it up a little bit and then go back in with the kneaded eraser to get a little bit more of a softer touch. It helps you sort of read the values a little bit more, especially on things like fabric, which typically have much more of a softer sort of edges to them. All right, and then you can go back in and reinforce some of those darks. If need be. Maybe there's a little bit of rim light over here. And on the other side as well. And then of course we're getting some folds here in her shoes. She's got these sort of sock shoes on. With a little sandal strip in them. And for this, I'll just come out, and so light's definitely coming from this way, so I want to be cognizant of that. And we're at 47 right now, so I'm going to cut this in a minute. Try to finish this leg, and I'll cut it. And then next week, what I will do is show you guys how I do a thumbnail, and then the next week I'll be doing a little tutorial on gessoing MDF4 board, which is what I use to produce my illustrations. Go through that process of how I prepare the surface, and then from there, we'll take it from there. Oil painting, I find that, with panel, you want to leave a little bit of a tooth, just as an FYI. Because otherwise, I've done both. I've done painting with a little bit of a tooth and painting with like no tooth. And while you can do very good things with both, initially you're gonna have to rely a little bit more on glazing and going in with a thinned out linseed oil final pass after your initial coat is dry to soften the edges, because otherwise you won't get decent coverage on your painting if you have no tooth. Less of a tooth is good for flow, but not so much for building up, achieving coverage. And then blending edges, things like Q-tips and, other sort of like more unorthodox ways of blending edges can be challenging, even with a regular brush. I'm actually going to go in and just lightly comb this. I really like that. Right. Let me zoom out here. So I'm pretty much almost done with this comp. There's more detail I have to add to this, but that's basically it right now. So yeah, that's basically how I would arrive at doing a character. Compile a lot of reference, do a comp, a one-to-one comp in pencil on paper, then do a Photoshop comp, and then after that, do a one-to-one drawing underdrawing on my primed painting surface. All right, guys, that's about it. I am going to be signing off from the beautiful Green Mountains here. You all have a great day and a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you when I see you. All right, take care.